Good morning from the dank basement. I am your wicked Uncle Squiddy, Paul, and every once in a while I've got to come on here and do a video to refresh everyone's memory and also to help beginning snuff takers more properly take snuff. I shouldn't say more properly, but how to enjoy snuff more. And so I'm going to do a real quick rundown on sniffing technique, pinching technique, some health concerns, and we're going to do this real quick this morning. So grab your cup of coffee, brace yourself, because the information is going to come thick and or fast. First of all, let's talk about snuff. Nasal snuff should only be taken into the nose to about here, right where the cartilage starts. You don't want to sniff it up here, up towards your septum. You don't want to get it up in here. You certainly don't want it to get up here between your eyes. It hurts. You're not getting the most nicotine, and you're not getting the best aroma. You want the nose, you want the stuff right here in the lower part of the nose. I see a lot of people on YouTube do these just massive, like they're trying to snort Coke or something. No, don't do that. It's not necessary. It actually ruins your enjoyment of the snuff. All right, now let's talk about how we're going to get the snuff into the nostril. There are several ways. No way is better than any other way, but some ways work better with some types of snuff, and I'll explain that. First of all, run barefoot through your snuff, stick your fingers right in the tin, get yourself a pinch. Advantages of the pinch is control. You can more carefully control the rate at which the snuff ascends into your nostrils. Also, it has the advantage of warming the snuff. This helps warm up some of those essential oils, bring some of those aromas out. It really is a good thing, especially for complicated or complex snuffs. Just warming it up is going to liberate a whole bunch of those aromas. Now, how do we take our pinch? It depends on how finely ground the snuff is milled. If it's real fine, you're going to want to hold it about down here. I will indicate again with my snuff spoon. Right about here, about this level. If it's coarse, you might almost have to stick it up your nose with your finger. And in the case of some schmalzlers and stuff, yeah, in fact, you actually will have really good luck if you just take some on the tip of your finger and just jam it up into your nostril. I know it ain't pretty, but it's real effective. Let's take this pinch. Now, see what I did there? I sniffed it quickly and briefly, but not too hard. The snuff right now is residing in my nose right about here, and that's where it needs to be. That allows the aromas in the snuff to blossom. All right, another method, and I like this very much, especially for finer snuffs, but I like it for any snuff that I want to get the most nicotine out of. And that is the boxcar method. Why does the boxcar method give you more nicotine? Well, it's very simple. I'll show you. The boxcar is made by taking your thumbnail and surrounding it with your index finger. This makes a little tray with a backstop. You're not going to lose snuff off your thumbnail. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of a weird position for me to get in, but that's kind of what a boxcar looks like. You take your snuff and you sprinkle it out, evenly coating that thumbnail, especially if it's a snuff you want to get that nicotine out of. Why? Because it's going to more evenly coat the inside of your nostril, thus making the snuff available to more capillaries, more points to absorb into the bloodstream, better uptake of nicotine. Makes sense, right? One disadvantage with the boxcar method is if you happen to exhale, you will get snuff all over you, which I almost did there. All right, another way to use your snuff is to use what is called the anatomical snuff box. The anatomical snuff box is technically, it is the web of skin between your index finger and your thumb, that little triangle of skin. It's a natural divot. You can see that if you partially spread your fingers, you get a little natural divot in there, little snuff spoon. And you could just pinch some snuff in there, or use your spoon to put it on your snuff box, tap it from your tap box, and then do one of these. All right, that is one. Now, there is some argument as to whether or not the anatomical snuff box is that, or is this. I've seen a lot of videos where German guys, particularly, they like to put it between these two knuckles right here, and then just do it off the back of the hand. That's legit as well, but it is messy. Okay. Let's talk about using a spoon and a good reason for using a spoon. We'll get to vials and bullets and all that in another video. But this is just sniffing technique now. We'll talk about how to sniff out of a bullet. Well, maybe I should do that right now. I don't know if I've got a loaded bullet, but I'll hunt for one. Here's a bullet. If it's got anything in it, we'll try it. With the artisan snuffs, look, the artisan snuffs are not pasteurized for the most part. They are packaged cleanly. They use a lot of care to keep everything hygienic and sanitary. However, because they are not pasteurized and because they typically do not wash the tins out with a little ammonia before canning the snuff, ammonia actually does get added to some snuffs to prevent spoilage, just a tiny little bit, and it evaporates if you leave the tin open for a little while. Usually that aroma of the ammonia goes away. But some manufacturers, the big ones, they put a little ammonia in there or they pasteurize the snuff. Artisan snuffs don't do that, which means that if you've got mold spores or germs or God knows what on your fingers and you touch your snuff with bare fingers, you might be inoculating it with a mold or a fungus. You don't want to do that, so use a clean snuff spoon like this one. This is the stainless steel snuff spoon, the overpriced stainless steel snuff spoon from Mr. Snuff. See, I almost ate it. That's a good way to do snuff, but it lacks the control and the warming of the pinch and the intimacy of the other methods of doing snuff. But for artisan snuffs, it might be a good idea. All right, let's talk about the bullet. Here's an acrylic bullet. What's in this? Let's find out. Okay, this is Wilson's of Strasbourg. I can tell because it kind of, I don't know what it reminds me of. It's florally. It's really nice. It's sweet. Okay, to use our bullet quickly, you got your arrow. The arrow is the direction that the little the concave of the little snuff spoon that's inside here is that direction. So to fill the bullet, you want to keep the arrow pointed upwards, rotate the bullet like so, tap it a couple of times. Just tap it gently so it makes a nice little even pile in your little snuff spoon that's inside this thing. Then rotate it while keeping that arrow up. Now, you have a carburetor hole here. This is to power cocaine into your nose. It is not for snuff. These things were not designed for snuff. Sorry, guys, this is drug paraphernalia. These were designed for using coke and other powdered drugs, illegal drugs. I am certain of it. Actually, it was probably originally designed as something for delivering medication, like legal medication, but it found a lot of use in the cocaine and meth communities, unfortunately. You don't need this carburetor. Do not do this. I've seen a lot of snuff presenters on YouTube. Do not do the following. You're not snorting cocaine. You're taking nasal snuff, all right? So what you do instead, and this is the problem with these. I've got my inside ring has bound up on this and it's jammed. That happens with these. There's no way to fix them. You have to throw them in. Yes, there are ways to fix it. Do you really want to sit there with the tweezers for 3 hours putting a little tiny rubber gasket? Because that's what's binding up in there. So we'll pretend that it's working. We'll pretend that because I can't find another bullet right handy. God, it's jammed. Ugh! We're going to pretend I've got a full bullet. What you do is you leave your finger off this and just very gently, like that. Okay, you take it up. You don't want it to go higher. You don't want it to go up here. You want it to go stay down here. So don't power it up into your sinuses by snorting it like you're trying to do a bump of cocaine. For those of you who have never used cocaine, there are movies. Go to Netflix, find Scarface. You'll see how it's done. Don't do that. Don't do the release on the carb. Do this. Now, another thing you can do with bullets is just tap it onto your boxcar. Makes it convenient. Now, these bullets, fortunately, are cheap enough. I'm really pissed every time I jam one of these up. You can kind of work it, but it gets to be a pain in the ass. So these things are throwaways, and in fact, it's thrown away. So those are my basic tips on how to take snuff and how to keep your snuff clean and safe. By the way, with the artisan snuffs, refrigeration is not a bad idea once these are opened. I don't think it's essential. I don't refrigerate very many of mine. Some of them I do. The Sir Walter Scott's Mull of Oa was one, and the, now I just spaced the name of it, Moro. Those are very wet snuffs, and they benefit, I think, from putting them in the fridge after you open them up to keep them safe, to keep them fresh and nice and safe because they're not pasteurized. Coming up in future videos, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the sources for buying snuff, where you can get snuff locally if you live in the United States or Canada, where you can get snuff locally if you live in Great Britain. We're going to talk about all those things. We're going to talk about the internet snuff retailers, including but not limited to tokesnuff.com, mrsnuff.com, and snuffstore.co.uk. There are a lot of sources for snuff. That's coming up in the next how-to video from the Dank Basement. Hope this didn't run too long, and if this is redundant information, take it with a grain of salt. Oh, and one more thing I want to show you before I quit. Yes, I don't have any clean hankies, so I'm killing trees. I feel bad. It's very important to not leave the snuff in the nose for health reasons. You don't want to leave the snuff in the nose for longer than it takes to enjoy the aroma and the nicotine, which means when you stop smelling the snuff in your nose, it's time to blow your nose. Clean that stuff out of there. There are a few reasons for doing this. One is reducing the exposure you're getting to nitrosamines, which are natural components of the tobacco that have been linked with cancer. But on a more practical basis, it just gets irritating. You don't want to have that old snuff up constantly twitching against your mucous membranes. So you have to clean it out. I'm now going to show you how to blow your nose. Yes, I know your mother showed you this when you were 5, but this is different. Okay, we want to keep the snuff, get the snuff out while avoiding popping our eardrums or blowing too hard. It's not necessary. Remember, the snuff is not up here if you've done it right. It's down here. So blowing it out shouldn't be a big production. And I've seen a lot of people blow their nose on camera. Happy Smoking 100, he's a foghorn when he blows his nose. It's not necessary. Do as I do. Watch carefully because this is disgusting. See what I did there? I alternated, excuse me, I alternated between nostrils. Close one, gently blow with the other. Close the other, gently blow. Doing this repeatedly, and I'm going to do it again because I didn't get it all out, will keep you from harming yourself. It sucks if you blow your nose too hard. Your ears do that popping, crackling thing, and it's not good. And there we go. Now, if you still have a lot of snuff in your nose, it's going to cause clogging after a while, just from irritation of the mucous membranes. What do you do if that happens? Do not use Afrin. Do not use an over-the-counter nasal decongestant. For one thing, they're really hard on your mucous membranes. Secondly, you're only supposed to use them for 5 consecutive days before you have to leave them alone for months. So don't do a Vicks nasal spray or a 48-hour or an Afrin. Don't do that. What you do want to squirt up your nose, however, is something called nasal saline solution. That can be purchased at any drugstore and at Walmart for about $3 for a little squeeze bottle. One of the brand names that I use is called Ocean. Another is called Simply Saline. And you just squirt it up your nose and rinse your nose out. Give yourself a little nasal douche. Your nose will clear itself with time, with mucus and so on. But it's often more pleasant to get the snuff out. And by the way, don't go to bed with a snoot full of snuff, please. There has never been a case of nasal pharyngeal cancer linked to taking nasal snuff. But why risk it? It's still tobacco. It still has those chemicals, those nitrosamines in there. So you want to get them out of your nose. Those are my tips for this beautiful Sunday morning on the way to Christmas. From the Dank Basement, I am your Uncle Squinty, Paul. Thanks for putting up with me. Oh, and the most important tip, stick it up your nose.